Welcome back to the League of Ireland Lowdown. You're with myself, Kieran Burke, and with former League of Ireland manager Shane Keegan. Hopefully you all enjoyed the week-long break. But the League of Ireland comes back into action this Friday night, and we have got plenty to discuss on this week's show. Shane, how was your week off?
All good, Kieran, all good. Trying to get my head back around to League of Ireland thought now after the Ireland games and then the World Cup hype and all of that. You'd get distracted easily, but looking forward to around the games again this Friday night.
Just on the World Cup, of course, for any of our listeners that haven't yet checked out our our World Cup podcast, that is available in our Spotify feed. So do check that out. Bar One Betting's World Cup Lowdown with myself and Shane, as we go through all the groups, try and pick up the group winners, some bet builders for some of the standout group matches, and our outright and golden boot selections. It can all be heard on that podcast. So well worth checking that out, which is a few days to go now until the start of the World Cup. And as you'll see behind me here, if you're watching the show this week, we do have that brilliant sign-up offer available. That's bet 10, get 70 in free bets. And that's available for the World Cup on bar1betting.com and the Bar One Betting app. T's and C's apply. 18 plus. Always gamble with care. Right, Shane, we're never far away from controversy. Even though there was no games in the league last week, the big headline over the last 48 hours, Galway United against Dundalk this coming Friday night will be played in none other than Turner's Cross in Cork.
Yeah, makes sense of that one for me. Look, it's crazy. Look, obviously there'd been a lot of talk over the last few days, hadn't there, when there still hadn't been a venue confirmed. And obviously Galway had said a while back that while the works were being done, that they would be playing out of Pearse Stadium. Yet we were waiting on closer. The game was getting closer by the day, and there was still no confirmation. I think a lot of people clued in were starting to think, oh Jesus, what way is this going to play out? But I doubt there was too many. I'd say you could have put a nice price up now for Turner's Cross, and you still wouldn't have had a whole lot of punters throwing money on that one. Look, you would have thought that the likes of an Athlone or something like that would have made sense, but yeah, it's crazy the way it's played out. I know Galway. Look, I'm sure the people involved with running Galway United will argue that a lot of factors worked against them to end up in this situation, but it is messy, and we're going to have a League of Ireland game with an absolute paltry attendance on the back of it, I would have thought, Kieran.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the John Caulfield's interview he done yesterday was interesting. I thought the statement from Galway was interesting. There seemed to be kind of subtle hints there that maybe Dundalk weren't as as helpful. But at the end of the day, it's a Galway home fixture, and there was always the possibility that this might happen with using Pearse Stadium. There was always that chance that there would be a fixture clash. Really, there should have been some sort of contingency plans in place from the get-go, shouldn't there?
100%, yeah. There had to be a more solid plan B there. There really did. And look, again, you can't really blame Dundalk. They kind of held all the cards in this one, really, didn't they? They weren't going to bow. I'm sure Killer wasn't going to bow to anything that he felt was in any way advantageous to Galway or any way disadvantageous to Dundalk. So they've obviously dug in. I don't think Galway are too happy with how it's played out. But they're the ones that are going to suffer the inconvenience most here, because I know it's still a long drive for Dundalk, but in terms of how you guys chalk it up as a market, this can't really be chalked up in the manner of a normal home game now, can
it? Who will this have the bigger effect on in that regard?
Look, I think Galway. Put it this way, if I was chalking up the market, Galway at home to Dundalk in Eamon DC Park would be a shorter price for me than Galway at home to Dundalk Turner's Cross. So I think they are the ones probably most affected by it. Look, it mightn't be massive one way or another. You could argue that they're probably not going to have the same home advantage even when they're playing in Pearse Stadium, although interestingly, I think there will be a novelty factor there. It'll be interesting to see the attendances. They could actually see a bit of a bounce in attendances going in there, which is part of the whole, I suppose, concept of home advantage. Even if they don't have the pitch that they're used to and dressing rooms that they're used to, and all those other small little things that count towards it. But no, not ideal for them, and John Caulfield could really, really do with them going and taking 3 points with this one, so that it can just be pushed to the back of their minds very quickly, rather than it being a talking point after the fact as to why they might have dropped some very badly needed points.
Yeah, fair point. Away from that, it was great last Friday night, Saturday morning to see a number of League of Ireland players get caps for the first time since Jack Byrne in 2020, I think it was. We saw Matt Healy, Dawson Devoy, and Cian Levy all come on for Ireland in their draw against Canada. So a great moment for the league.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And look, let's hope we're not waiting from however many years you just pointed out back to Jack's back to Jack's last cap before we see something like this happen again. Look, very, very hard for the players to make any kind of real impact in the game, given the game was so low profile and given the minutes some of them played and that kind of stuff. I think the bigger impact will have been, have they made an impression on the manager over their time in and around the group rather than how they actually played within the game. I don't, like I said, I don't think you can read a huge amount into that. But, if they were assertive on the pitch, if they were, the kind of player that the manager feels is lacking within the current group, as I think both Matt Healy and Dawson would like to think they are, particularly probably Matt Healy for me, even though Dawson is probably the player with the slightly higher profile. Yeah, and how they gelled with players and all of that kind of thing. All of that is, you need to have used those few days to make your name stick in the manager's head as somebody that they see as a real viable option going forward. And I think there's a good chance that look, we're not going to see them all back in the next squad, but there will be a chance that one of them, which one we don't know, but one of them might have done enough to keep themselves in the real picture, I suppose, when that swings back.
From all reports, apparently the manager was very impressed with the players within the camp. Now, whether he's going to come out and say, look, we had these lads in the camp and they were way off, I don't know whether that would be something he would do. But I think the point you made, in particularly Dawson, who started the game on Saturday morning, it wasn't really ideal for him to make his debut there. Ireland were starved of the ball in that first half. They were dreadful in the first half, much better in the second when Jamie McGrath and Liam Scales came on. And could have won the game in the end, but particularly in that first half, they took a real battering off Canada, and it didn't suit obviously Dawson's attributes. We wanted to see him get on the ball and see what he could do. He did have half a chance early on where he had a shot that was kind of cleared away from the goal face, but it probably wasn't. I do think that Qatar game would have been the ideal game for Dawson to make his Ireland debut. I think there was a missed chance there.
I'd agree with you 100% on that one. Yeah. And I think he'll probably know that. I would love to have been a fly on the wall when those discussions were being had around how that whole thing was going to be handled. I think that would definitely have been a better opportunity, and hopefully long term it doesn't count against them, What was it like for you? Must have been a strange experience watching an Ireland game on TV.
Yeah, that's the first one I've missed in a long time now. So yeah, I was disappointed I couldn't make the trip to Montreal. But the lads that I know that travelled said they had a great time. So it looked good to get a good result as ever. That's 7 unbeaten now if we exclude the penalties. So
we'll take that.
Yeah. Looking forward to Kosovo in September now. Look, we'll start looking ahead to the return of the League of Ireland on Friday, and we'll start with under pressure, Derry City against Bohemians. Everything seemed quite quiet for the Brandywell over the last week or so.
Yeah, well, quiet is probably good when it comes to the manager's situation at the moment, because any noise you were going to hear was, I would think, the kind of noise that the manager wouldn't want. So I'd say he was quite happy that it was that it was quiet up around the place up there. Look, again, things haven't changed since our last conversation. If anything, you're only going to double down on our assertions from the last one. No win in I don't know how long now, certainly not in the last 5 anyway. So really, really struggling and playing against a Bows team that really annoying Shamrock Rovers defeat from their perspective in a game that they should have taken something from. The rest of their form has been very, very good, and I don't see any reason. Like, you could argue the home advantage swings it back. I don't know if home advantage to Derry is much of an advantage at the moment, to be honest with you. The crowd are on their case so much that I don't know if it's very helpful. I think if Bows were to get the first goal, I think it becomes horrendous atmosphere for Derry players, or even if Derry were playing poorly and the game was 0-0 at half time. So I don't see that as an advantage at all. You look at Bows getting the show back on the road with a nice, comfortable 3-1 win away to Sligo in the last game before the break. And yeah, I think everything is pointing towards them being able to go up there and get a result, to be honest.
Yeah, they won up there in February as well, Bows. And looking at the pricing of this game here, that they are favourites. They're 4-3. Derry are 2-1 at home. I mean, if you'd said at the start of the season Derry to beat Bows at home, they'd be 2-1. After the mid-season break, you wouldn't have believed that. It's incredible how much they've underperformed. So is this going to be more drop points for Derry?
Yeah, I think so. Look, you could a draw would be, I don't know, even hard to see the fans coming away with a draw even and thinking, that was a decent point. It's kind of win or bust for Derry at the moment if the manager is going to start moving them up the table and getting the support back on side. And I think that means they have to kind of force the equation a little bit. And again, I think that will suit Bowes as well, to be honest. And yeah, look, I think there's a massive, massive difference in the vibe around both dressing rooms at the moment, and I think that'll count for a lot.
What are you going with here?
Yeah, Bowes to go up and get the win. Look, I don't think they'll have it all their own way, but I do think they'll come back down to 3 points, maybe 1-0, 2-1, something like that.
Okay. Moving along to the game then we discussed at the top of the show, the game that's taking place in Cork, Galway United against Dundalk. I suppose the one positive for Galway, John Caulfield will be in very familiar surroundings. Maybe he can tap into the spirit of the great Cork City teams he had in the past. But yeah, it's going to be it's going to be interesting to watch. What the atmosphere is like, what the attendance is like. But I'd agree what you said at the top of the show. It's hard to see how this isn't a disadvantage to Galway playing away from DC.
Yeah, definitely so. Look, I think this is a hard game to call at the best of times. Two teams that I think 8 points between them in the table. Dundalk would have taken that all day long at the start of the season. I actually don't think there's that much between them in reality. I know the table doesn't lie and all that. I think Galway do have a game in hand, so that distance or that gap could become a bit smaller on the back of that potentially. All right, but I actually don't think there's a huge amount between the two here. And if Galway had proper home advantage, I might be leaning towards them, but as we've said, I just think this is going to throw them a little bit, far from ideal situation for them. And that would kind of have me swinging the other way slightly. I do think there's a hell of a chance it could be a draw, but if I was looking to kind of give myself the draw and then take a chance on either side, I'd probably look at could Dundalk go down there and get a win with a draw, no bet.
Yeah, I mean that Dundalk camp, it must be a really good place to be. I'd think of the players heading off there for their week off, and they're in the top four in the table, newly promoted side, playing really well. Must be a good place to be. Kieran Kilduff seems to be really impressing there. The players all speak very highly of him. There's been no off-field nonsense from Dundalk for once. It just seems to be, as you said, the vibe there seems to be really, really good at the moment.
Yeah, very harmonious, and look, results will do that for you. That's for sure. But they do seem like quite a together group. Now, to be fair, I would always have said similar about Galway. A John Caulfield team. He does tend to put a lot into the camaraderie side of things and building unity and being more than the sum of the parts and all of that kind of stuff. And I think the interesting thing with Galway as well this year is I'm not 100% sure if John is able to fully kind of come across his strongest 11. Seems to be a lot more chopping and changing. You used to be able to nearly set your clock by a John Caulfield team, barring everybody who's fit and available. Whereas at the moment you're looking at it and there seems to be quite a few changes from one game to the next, which is, has its upsides because we can argue about squad depth 100%. But I think at the same time, he should also, by this stage of the season, have a fair idea of, if we had a cup final in the morning, what would our 11 be? And I'm not sure he's 100% there. So, like I said, that can work to or for you. Look, they're capable of winning this game. As I said, from a gambling punter's point of view, it's maybe one that you'd steer clear of. But they're sticking the neck out, yeah. Just the season Dundalk are having at the moment, they won't have any fear that of their capability going down there and getting the 3 points.
I feel like I'm trying to influence you on this one, but again, Dundalk, a couple of niggly injuries, kind of Horgan coming off in a lot of games there just before the break. You'd imagine the week might have helped them clear up some of those issues. So I probably would fancy Dundalk's chances here, but you're the expert, so tell us your selection here.
Well, I don't know about expert, yeah, but no, I'd be interested in having a look at a price on Dundalk with draw no bet, yeah.
4-6.
Yeah. Look, that'd be about right. Thrown into an ACCA, I suppose. Probably wouldn't be a standalone bet that you'd do, but yeah, I'll stick with that.
Yeah, anyone that wants to be a bit braver, Dundalk are 5-4 there. Moving on then to St. Pat's against Drogheda United.
Yeah, this is a big one for Pats. They need to get the show back on the road now pretty quickly. Really disappointing end to the first half of the season for them because they've been looking looking so good and looking like the team that were potentially going to most put it up to Rovers. And look, they could still do that. I know it's an 8 point gap, but again, they have that game in hand that could bring it down to an achievable target. If they're to get over the line there, Drogheda. You look at their first half of the season overall, obviously an outstanding start. Wheels have come off a good bit since then. But again, if you had said to them heading into the second half of the season, you would be outside the bottom two, and most importantly, probably from their perspective, 10 points clear of last. I mean, points are very hard to pick up around the bottom half of the table. You wouldn't say they're safe, far from it, but that's a nice cushion to have in terms of escaping that automatic spot, Kieran, that's for sure. But no, going back to Pats, look, Stephen needs to get the motor in pretty quickly. They will have, looked at their first half of the season and tried to see how can they get a bit more out of it. Consistency obviously is the killer for them. I think their squad is outstanding. I really do. I think it's pretty much as good as is around. So he needs to be getting more out of him. I think at this stage, to be honest with you, I think a third, if they were to finish the season in third, I think they'd be quite disappointed. But I do think they can get things back moving in the right direction. I do think they would have a bit too much quality for Drogheda, particularly when they're at home as well, Kieran. So I think they can get the win there.
There's not many teams that Kevin Doherty has struggled against in the last couple of seasons. He's taken big scalps. You've seen them going up to Derry and winning. They've won in Tala. They've beaten a lot of the big teams at home as well. But this is the one game where they do really seem to struggle. They've taken a couple of fairly comprehensive defeats off St. Pat's. And look, the price here indicates Pats are the hot favourites of 4-11. I don't think there's any getting away from Pats in this fixture, is there?
No, definitely. I'm with you all the way. And look, you're going to have Keane Levy back and with smile from ear to ear and buoyed on by things, and the fans are going to be very much behind him, and I'm sure he's going to get a rapturous applause on his return to things. And I could actually see him sparking. I could definitely see him sparking in this game and potentially being the difference between the sides.
Yeah, I know he was only on for a couple of minutes in Montreal, but a couple of dribbles where he just carried the ball just like he does in the leagues. Such a beautiful ball carrier, Cian Levy. So a player to watch in this game perhaps. But Pat's 4-11 there, I think, is Shane's selection, unless you've got anything else, Shane.
No, I'm with you there. Yep.
Okay, moving on then to what a massive game at the RSC, Waterford against Sligo Rovers. We did see some hints of improvement at Waterford just before the break. They need to start winning games though, crucially.
Yeah, that's it. This is the proverbial shit or bust game for them, really, isn't it? If they don't take 3 points in this one, I think they can almost forget about it. I mean, particularly if they were to lose it, good night. 11 points just to get themselves into a promotion relegation spot. It's an absolutely huge one for them. I think the extra preparation time, I know some guys might have been away maybe for a couple of days, but I think the extra preparation time, given that the manager is still relatively new with that group, will have worked in his favour as well. And yeah, I do think that their recent recent performances, because you've hit the nail on the head, they haven't necessarily got the points return on some of those performances that they would have liked to have got. But I do think the performances have absolutely improved. I've seen them for a full 90 minutes twice over their last 3 games, and thought they were very, very good. And yeah, Sligo, again, how do they feel about the season at this point? It's kind of hard to know. They got off to such a poor start, right down on the bottom. Then they went on this kind of lovely run, but then they've lost won one of the last 5 again. So it's kind of dipped off again, and I don't know. I think they're going to have their work cut out in this one. There's definitely been a bounce in Waterford. They've got one thing that they've got that Sligo, in my opinion, don't have, obviously, is just a regular goal scorer. In fact, they've got 2. I know Podge hasn't hit the heights of previous seasons quite yet, but Tommy Lonergan has absolutely taken the baton up in that respect. He just looks an absolute live wire in every game I've watched so far. He really, really does. Whereas you're looking at Sligo and you're wondering, right, where the goal is going to come from. I think it's, Wilfred Sturridge from a wide position is their top goal scorer this season. To me, there's no doubt there's more firepower in the Waterford side, and I can see them winning this one and, trying to use it now as a launch pad to go after 8th after 9th and possibly even try to chase down 8th.
The only thing I would say, I'd agree with you there. I think there's a great chance for Waterford, but they've won one of their 19 games, and that was very maybe fortuitous win against Drogheda with the controversial penalty. 5-4 to win here at home. I mean, you wouldn't be just overly confident at that price, but I do think that this is probably a great chance for Waterford to start some sort of great escape mission, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. And look, on the flip side, you're right. Obviously, it was a very fortuitous win against Drogheda, but on the flip side, they had a very fortuitous thing going in the opposite direction for them in the previous game, where they conceded that such a late equaliser to Derry City, which was another home game that they could definitely have picked 3 points up in. Yeah, price wise, it's probably in and around what I would have thought. Look, it's not one that you'd be absolutely nailing down as a definite win. But I do think they have enough about them, and that seems a relatively fair price to me.
Yeah, and they're in decent form at home actually as well, Waterford. They're unbeaten in their last five, including that win against Drogheda in their most recent home game. So, will I lock you in for a Blues win here?
Do, yeah.
Very good. And that leaves us then with, there's usually a Dublin derby most weeks. We've got a big one this week at Tulka Park. That is Shelbourne against Shamrock Rovers. So this will be the live game on Friday night at 8 o'clock on Virgin Media.
Yeah, no surprise that it's the one that's been chosen on that front. I think again it is the kind of game that could potentially be a cracker. Shell's making a bit of an improvement there as the season started to go along. Probably still a little too many draws for their liking. You know, they've gone the last 5 or 6 unbeaten, but quite a few draws thrown in there. If they could have converted those into a couple more wins, they could rightly be kind of up with that top 3 pack at this stage. But definitely signs of improvement from them. Rovers, like it's mad, isn't it, to say they're top of the table, and yet I don't think Stephen Bradley will be, jumping about in terms of their form or how impressed he's been with his side over the course of the season. They've been better than the rest, but I think that probably says a bit more about the rest than it does about Rovers. And look, the big thing for him, Kieran, is going to be, as we start to approach Europe and European competition, can they properly start to tip into fifth gear, and can they start to show that level of consistency that they don't have, like the ridiculous results that they had against Sligo Rovers and Dundalk prior to that. I mean, those sort of performances need to be eradicated from their form if they're going to have a proper run at Europe. I think this is the hardest game to call.
The market shows that it's 8-5 your pick at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely no surprise to me there. And I think you'd be very, very brave to stick your neck out on either side. And if I was looking between the 3 results, I think the draw, what are we looking at, 9-4 maybe on a draw?
23-10 the draw. I mean, Shamrock Rovers 4 defeats this season, 3 of those away from home. And we all know but Shelbourne struggled at home. They've only got the 1 home win. So it is a very difficult game to call for sure. I suppose you just look at Rovers, though, the results they had before the break, the win against Pats, the win against Bows when they didn't play that well. They were still 2 massive results. I just wonder, could they restart after the break with another massive 3 points here?
Yeah, possibly. And look, they'll like I said, they'll have confidence that in their ability, that they'll want to kick on again. Another returning couple of returning players from international duty. In fact, who did. They had 3 over the course of the 2 games, had they, in the squad?
Adam Brennan, Matt Healy, and
McGinty there as well, was he?
Who?
Was McGinty there as well?
He was. You're right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, again, I'm sure the supporters will be giving them a rapturous applause. Although obviously it's in this case it's an away match. But yeah, look, if you had to go with either side, Rovers do have that bit more quality. You would go with them, but I do think this potentially has draw wrote all over it. Hopefully an entertaining and exciting draw.
Yeah, but look, the last 2 games, Rovers beat them 3-2, and before that a 2-2 draw. So maybe if you're looking for that bit more value, maybe a both teams to score draw is the way to go here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, that would be a good one. What price?
I will tell you now. Let's have a look. Both teams to score and the games that end in a draw is 130.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be one, and that gives you extra interest when you're sitting down. You're shouting for goals as well, is always a good thing.
Yeah. So just to recap on the 5 games coming up on Friday night, Shane's selections. He's gone for a Bows win in Derry. He's gone for Dundalk draw no bet against Galway. That game been played in Turner's Cross in Cork. He's gone with a St. Pat's win against Drogheda, a Waterford win at home to Sligo Rovers, and a both teams to score draw in the Dublin derby between Shelbourne and Shamrock Rovers. And that 5-fold ACCA comes out at just over 50-1. So you can build that for yourself on the Bar One betting app. As for your best bet of the week, Shane, what have you got for us?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with that Waterford call, Kieran. So I am. Like I said, just been impressed with them since the new managers come in. Impressed with the quality of individual they have. A massive backline. That was one of the things that struck me when I was in the RSC a couple of weeks ago. The size of the three centre halves means they're a big threat on set pieces, throw-ins. They were trying to capitalise everything there. Quite brave in the sense that they get the keeper plus 8 bodies behind the ball, make it hard to break down, but they essentially do pretty much still leave too high all the time, which gives them a real counter-attacking threat. And I think they can have enough to get the win over Sligo in this massive, massive 6-pointer. And as I've said already, the player that's really caught the eye for me has been Tommy Lonergan. We saw him coming through at Pats, I think, and we all thought he was an excellent young talent. And Watford, by hook or by crook, questions to be asked probably in terms of the manner in which they got their hands on him, but they got their hands on him. And if they are going to make a fair burst at staying up, he's got to be the pivotal figure in terms of trying to drive that forward. So I'd say Tommy Lonergan to get a goal in a Watford win is what I'd be looking at, Kieran.
Very good. Yeah, Tommy Lonergan, 6 league goals this season. That just leaves him one shy of the top scorer in the league, who's St. Pat's Ryan Edmondson. So for a team that's bottom with just one win, to have 6 goals at this stage is really good shooting from Tommy Lonergan. So that's Shane's selection there. It's Waterford to win at home to Sligo, and Tommy Lonergan to score. We'll be boosting that selection on the app later on this week. And as for your ACCA this week, Shane, which as ever will enhance in our shops, tell us who you've got in there.
Yeah, I spoke about Pats and the need to get the show back on the road. I think they will do that, as we've said. Drogheda never make life easy on when they travel to a game, but at the same time, I think Pats will have enough about them. I also think that Bohs can go up the road and come home with a result there. As you said, it's amazing to think that they're actually favourites away from home. So I go to 2 of those from the Premier. And then dropping down to the first, Kieran, yeah, I think Treaty have they've had a hard season so far. Couple of little bright sparks thrown in there, here and there, but by and large, they've been struggling. Lost the last 3 on the bounce as well, heading into the break. Whereas on the flip side of that, you look at Bohs. They had a poor run of form themselves a month or 2 ago, where they dropped quite a few points, but they bounced back very, very well in the last while. A couple of players absolutely firing for them. They will be without Billy O'Neill, but they have been starting to phase him out anyway, to an extent. Ben McCormick in particular kind of come to the fore there. They've got a young fella whose name fucking escapes me that they brought in, who's been very, very impressive as well. And yeah, I think Bray can go and get the win there. So I'd drop them in there as my third one.
Yeah, I've been treated the week before the break when they played Longford, and for the team that's actually bottom of the division, I was kind of semi-impressed in terms of their work rate and their organisation, but they are just really lacking in that quality in the final third. Very few kind of household names, even for first division level. There's very few experienced players. I think their oldest outfield player was Manning at 26. And maybe their oldest defender might have been Ben Lynch, who was at Longford previously. He's 23 or 24. So it's a very young team, and they're just struggling for that bit of quality, bit of experience at the moment. So I can see why you've opted against them this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of young players, just quickly hitting a few buttons here, as you were saying, that the young man at Bray Wanderers, John Billy Cisse, what a wonderful name. 18 years of age, has been a revelation since breaking into the Bray team in recent weeks. So keep an eye out for him. Dan Ring, a guy that some of us would have seen on the RTE show where they looked at the academy structure in Ireland recently. I think it was Marie Crowe was kind of behind that. He's found his scoring boots of recent as well. So I think Bray are looking very, very good. And I think they'll have too much in that one.
There you go. I didn't know he was on that show. I actually seen him score in pre-season for Shelbourne here against Dundalk in a Leinster Senior Cup game, and I knew he had gone on loan there. So I was surprised to see him maybe start slow, but he definitely has found his boots now, which is always good to see. You want to see young players doing well in the division. But look, Shane, that's it for this week. Hopefully we'll have some winning selections. I think your best bet before the break was a winner. So
we did. I get enough grief when they don't come in, so we better point out when we get the odd one in. All right, yeah, we looked at Bohs to win away to Sligo and both teams to score. So a 3-1 win for Bows there. Duly obliged, thankfully.
Lovely. Hopefully plenty more to come this week. Again, for our listeners, do check out that online sign-up offer. That's Bet10. Get up to €70 in free bets for the World Cup. You'll find details on that on the Bar1Betting app and bar1betting.com. Over 18s only, obviously, and always gamble responsibly. But for this week's League of Ireland Lowdown, from myself, Kieran Burke, and from Shane Keegan, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.